The story of Mousillon is a long and tragic one, a land rocked with plague and poverty for centuries, but with the gift of unlife bestowed on the grateful populace by everyone's third favorite blood dragon, their people have new purpose, new meaning, a chance to spread the name and deeds of their homeland throughout the mortal world. So today, the Red Duke of Mousillon and a Strigoi vampire lead their undead hordes against the Empire in a Steel Faith Overhaul 2v2 as hell rains down on them from above. That's epic looking, man. Another iconic Warhammer matchup, pitting the technology and faith of mankind against an unrelenting wall of predators and mindless flesh. Probably going to come out the other end of this long march just a tad bit toastier. Hellstorm rocket batteries will get you grilled up in a hurry. Now the Knights of the Black Grail are here as well. Supercharged undead Bretonnians who can put down even Blood Knights in single combat. They sow terror and discord wherever they march, with a leadership penalty for any unit they attack, and magical weapons that can scythe through physical resistance, as well as a hefty bonus first large. Essentially the elite surgical strike force of the vampire armies, but with their low model count, susceptible to getting swamped and completely surrounded, which honestly suits them just fine. They're pretty good at making living things dead even when they're surrounded by an enemy army. Now the other vampire army is filled with Graveguard and zombies, and led by a Ghoul King, a Strigoi on a Terrorgeist, whose screams can paralyze entire regiments of battle-hardened warriors in fear. Now, I really wish CA would add a sound effect for that scream. There's some really cool monster sounds in this game, but that one is noticeably lacking, and I think it would add a lot to the character and to the monster in general. But for the Empire, the Supreme Patriarch of the Colleges of Magic, Balthasar Gelt of the Gold Order, astride his Pegasus Quicksilver, will hold the right flank, while Volkmar the Grim and the Disciples of the Cult of Sigmar will hold the left. Now, as we've discussed before, not only is it a pretty fluffy build in terms of adhering to lore, but it's simply a great choice against the vampires in general from a gameplay perspective. Flagellants are unbreakable and immune to fear and terror, while Volkmar's banishment vortexes are fantastic for shredding through skeletons and zombies. And anchored, of course, by witch hunters, monster killers with blessed crossbows meant for killing stuff like Terrorgeists or Vargulfs. They can rip through single entities very, very quickly. So those are the builds. Let's get into the game. You can see some Pistoliers situated on the left flank of Volkmar's build right now, and Direwolves skirting around the flank, looking to get into some squishy targets in the back lines. Handgunners, very good choice for them. Just basically tie them down and allow the vampire army to get closer without taking so many casualties on the way in. They'll get a good charge into the back of the handgunners, pull out, keep skirting around, use that mobility, and maybe get at that Hellstorm rocket battery, which is doing a lot of damage to the vampire line right now. Of course, Direwolves are very squishy themselves, so isolated like this, maybe not going to live for too long here, but if they can kill the artillery crew, definitely worth it, and they will go for that rear charge and start ripping them up. And the Flagellants and Tattersouls are there to reinforce, and he's actually pulling out, which I'm not sure I agree with. If you're going to send the Direwolves in to get shot, you might as well just make sure they tie down that artillery crew completely, while the Hellstorm rocket battery does some decent damage to the army from Mousillon moving up now. Looks like final transmutation from Gelt, going down on the Strigoi, blasting that scream attack into Gelt in the face, and didn't do a whole lot of damage. Not really meant for small single entities like Quicksilver, who can kind of skirt around the attack itself and kind of dodge it there. Would have been better probably going down the flank of a great sword or something expensive on the infantry line, or maybe the Demigryphs. There are some Royal Altar of Griffites on the field as well. But Zombie, Skeletons, and Graveguard moving up now under the watchful eye of their Red Duke, and the Devils of Schwarzhofen are actually on the field. Those are extremely powerful in SFO. Much lower entity count, of course, but that means higher HP, higher damage, and more synergy with healing spells like Invocation of Nahek. They should be able to feast on the low-armored Flagellants without much trouble. But the Terrorgeists are on the prowl right now. Witch Hunter Disciples getting some good shots into them as they fly overhead. There's Predators looking for something to snack on. And as we shift back over past Gelt and the Steam Tank unleashing some of its fire, see if there's a Scream attack coming. Doesn't look like they've done that yet, but it could be a great idea into the flank of something. What is that? Looking like a Flamestorm about to be unleashed. It's a great way to burn away the curse of undeath. From a lore perspective, certainly one of the best ways to deal with an undead army. Sienna Foiganasis from Vermintide is famous for this. A necromancer can't raise dead if a storm of fire just turned everything into ash, and that's exactly what she did in Stirland. Saved the Deathjacks from being completely overrun by a zombie horde, much like the one attacking the Empire now in a great sword unit, completely eviscerated by a breath attack from the flank. That was so nasty, but you can see The difference between this dwarf game and the vampire game, the Red Duke parked himself over the top of the Empire army, and the armor piercing from the handgunners and the bonus first large from the witch hunters doing a number on his health pool. Soul Blight going down on the other side, hurting a lot of those swordsmen and Empire spearmen that are trying to hold the line here. Bit of a zombie blob going on, but they look to be about to overwhelm the Empire forces there. Gonna have to be very careful because those spearmen and swordsmen are very susceptible to a terror rounding. If a terror guy decides to land in the back of them, could send everything running. Over on this side, Flagellant's holding for now, and a banishment about to go down and sending everybody to the nether realm, jibbing the front ranks of skeletons and zombies. That was nasty, and that's what I'm talking about. That banishment vortex is so good for dealing with the ridiculous HP pools of the zombies and skeletons. Of course, they're not hard to kill, there's just a ton of them. There's a lot of health to deal with. Volkmar and that War Altar Sigmar having no problems pushing through, just punching through the center of the zombie line, while the Knights of the Black Grail and the Red Duke deal with the Flagellants out on the left flank of the Empire, and they're gonna slaughter those poor unarmored fanatics. It's not even gonna be a contest. I don't think those Knights of the Black Grail are even gonna take damage against them, honestly. I believe they do have regen, so in a long, prolonged fight, they don't really need to be cyclocharged. Of course, it's the best way to use them, but they're quite good for dealing with infantry in a long slog as well, simply because each of those models has so much health. Now the Devils of Schwarzhofen dealing with Tatter Souls in the back, and yeah, they're going to punch them around. No problem whatsoever. Another breath attack going down. This one hitting some of the handgunners, but not doing too much damage there, actually. Steam tank still firing. It has not been shut down yet, but the Empire forces of Venris, Balthasar Gelt's army, is being completely overrun by the Terrorgeist. Graveguard pushing through, Terrorgeist just stomping through the lines and snacking on all the Flagellants and Empire swordsmen, spearmen that are still holding on. These ones, they just broke. They just broke. So the entire Empire army has broken on this side except for a few units. The Demigryphs are still around, and the steam tank is still fighting. But the Red Duke is super low. The Witch Hunters have done a number on him, and he goes down to Volkmar. The Flagellants who torpedoed just long enough to prevent him from escaping, and the Witch Hunters shot him to pieces, and he goes down. Red Duke is dead. And that might be an issue for the Mousillon army here. Leadership seems to be going down a bit. Bit of crumbling on the Devils of Schwarzhofen, but I believe their regen should be able to keep them in the fight for a while anyway. Pistoliers getting committed into melee. Handgunners shooting them up. And yeah, those handgunners have been utilized really effectively this game. They did a lot of damage to the Red Duke. They did a lot of damage to the Devils of Schwarzhofen, to the most important units on the Mousillon line. But the Vampire counts are doing much better on this side. The Royal Altar of Grivites are holding on by a thread here, surrounded by Graveguard, Knights of the Black Grail, and some zombies. That's just too many bodies for them to cut through, but they're holding on, which is really important because basically at this point, all they need to do is buy time for the Volkmar's army to come over and help reinforce, because I think Mousillon is on their last legs. Yet the Empire army is coming over here. There are a few units left in the Mousillon army, namely the Knights of the Black Grail, but everything else is pretty much crumbled after the death of their Red Duke. Terrorgeist dealing with a steam tank, just trying to pull away at the moment. Flagellants holding the line here against just hordes of Graveguard and zombies. Now, Graveguard will, of course, stop Flagellants in a prolonged melee fight, but they don't really need the infantry fight to win for the Empire. They need to hold while the handgunners and artillery and steam tank do their damage. Handgunners doing some really good shots in on the Terrorgeist now. They've really, seriously, the focus fire from those handgunners and from the Witch Hunters has been phenomenal this game. They've really gone for all the high value targets they need to be going for. And that's very important because they need to get those flyers and those powerful single entities off the field. The Knights of the Black Grail are slaughtering these Flagellants over here. Not even close. Tatter Souls are just getting destroyed. And these Knights of the Black Grail are basically just kicking ass and tying down quite a number of the Empire infantry over there. But really not the highest value target, right? The Flagellants are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, which is just tarp it and be annoying and tie down the expensive single entities and the expensive cavalry. And that's what they're doing right now. So those Knights of the Black Grail need to get pulled out and come back over to where the actual combat is very important. Maybe go for something like the steam tank and destroy that. I believe it has physical resistance, so they might be very good against that steam tank with their bonus first large and with that magical attack. Flamestorm ripping through some of the zombies here, but didn't seem to be very effective. Seemed to miss most of the targets there. Might have clipped the edge of that horde. But at this point, what was a very fierce battle, it basically just evolved into a big blob. Two separate blobs here as the Witch Hunters and Handgunners fire into the flank of the Knights of the Black Grail. And look at that focus fire. All of those are hitting the single end, yeah, they're hitting that one model, and it got destroyed there. Those magical attacks doing so much damage, that Balthasar Lord doing so much work from the Witch Hunters. The Vampires need to shut down those Witch Hunters, or they're going to shred every single unit left on this field. That's exactly what they're meant to do. They're exactly meant to go after very expensive units like this one. And so 2 of those models just went down. That's a big loss for the Vampire Count's army. I believe those were under the control of the Strigoi Ghoul King. Yeah, they were under the control of the Strigoi Ghoul King. And now that entire Knights of the Black Grail unit is almost completely dead. Witch Hunter's given too much time to fire here. Terrorgeist being tied down. And actually some friendly fire. Some of the Pistoliers going down to the Witch Hunter crossbow shots. And the Terrorgeist tries to pull away. These Knights have been dealing, and actually Devil's Shortstop is still around as well. They stayed way too long with those Flagellants. They did not need to be used over here. I mean, you could just ignore those Flagellants and go for something more important. Like he's doing now. He's doing it now. He's getting the Terrorgeist into some of the Witch Hunters to tie them down finally, which is really important. If these Witch Hunters go down, that would be a huge swing in the Vampire Count's favor. Might be able to kill this unit. I mean, they've got a decent amount of HP, but certainly with the Terrorgeist eating them up. Oh, it has almost no health left. Pistolier's getting committed, but might tear out. Handgunners having to get committed into melee as well. And Knights of the Black Grail coming back to reinforce, but the Terrorgeist goes down. And here come Devil of Schwarzhofen just dropped out of the sky from crumbling. But these Knights are not. And they just smashed through that artillery crew, sent them flying about 50 feet. A very satisfying charge. And they will butcher those Witch Hunters in melee if they decide to go for them. And they need to, because if they allow those Witch Hunters to fire, they're going to get destroyed. Getting some good lance attacks in now. Now remember, the Witch Hunters do have bonus versus large, but really not the melee combatants that the Knights of the Black Grail are. And so in a prolonged fight here, I think this cavalry should definitely be able to win and kill some of these models, and at least prevent them from firing. But I think that the Vampire Counts are struggling mightily at this point. A cannonball going through, killing one of the Witch Hunters there. And we see a long line, a long column of Flagellants coming back with Volkmar the Grim at the helm. Don't know where Gelt is. Think he might have died to the Strigoi, actually. And the Strigoi went down to some crumbling a little bit earlier on. So I think that the Empire should be in control of this battle here. Yeah, balance bar very much in their favor. Pretty much all that's left, actually, are the corrupted Grail Knights from Mousillon. So they're going to skirt around the flank looking for something to kill. But with the Royal Altar of Griffites closing in behind here, that's a tough fight for both armies. They'll have to commit. Those Royal Altar of Griffites are actually moving faster now as the Knights of the Black Grail begin crumbling in a big charge. One of the Knights goes down here, absolutely skewered on the edge of a lance. And they're actually doing very well against those Royal Altar of Griffites, but with Volkmar the Grim coming in with that physical resistance, looks like the Demis did terror out, but there's no hope for Mousillon or the Vampire Counts here. The Empire will win, and it was a very good build from Jack, Volkmar the Grim player, who had basically an entire army that's designed for dealing with vampire or undead armies. The Unbreakable and the Flagellants is just so important as we see Knights of the Black Grail getting side apart by handgunner fire and Witch Hunter fire. They will charge into melee and surround the War Altar of Sigmar, but with the Spearmen coming in to reinforce, this should be their end, and they will all crumble, and that will be the end of the battle. But yeah, the Flagellants are just so good against the Vampire Counts. Not because they're amazing in combat, like they get stomped by Graveguard, but just because they're unbreakable. It's just so important, so impactful to have a front line that won't run away. And we saw with Venerus' army, his Empire Spearmen and Empire Swordsmen broke very early on with a good Soul Blight and a Terror route with the Terror guys coming in from behind. It was too much for that army to handle. So, very well played from Jack there. He had a good army. The Hellstorm Rocket Battery just cut through a bunch of those zombies and skeletons, thinned their numbers before he was able to close into close quarters combat. Looking at the Vampire counts here, Willem's Terrorgeist with 45 kills, or 61 kills, and his Strigoi with 45. Graveguard did a lot of work against the Empire Swordsman, as to be expected. The Vampire count infantry will definitely outperform the Empire infantry. It's just about whether the characters and the special units will be able to make the impact out on the flank and the rear of the enemy armies to really turn the tide there. So, I mean, Volkmar actually got 510 kills that battle. Bright Wizard with 274. The Banishments and the Flamestorms were amazing. But ultimately, I think Shredder got a little bit too blobbed up for those vortexes, and certainly the Knights of the Black Grail, even though they got 335 kills, it was on chaff that they would have been better suited going for something like the Steam Tank or higher value targets. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you next time.